2023 to be a year of significant declines in inflation, and it's actually our job to make sure that that's the case. But I would tell you that, with inflation...
So, welcome to Financial Stockholm. Today is Thursday, March 2nd, 2023, and I'm Christopher Crystal, and these are our thoughts on what's happening in the market, what we're seeing. Of course, none of this is investment advice, just possibly things you can talk to your investment advisor about for your own strategy when you're investing. So, of course, we see, we had the inflation figures last week on France and UK, and now we see the EU is effectively in an increased inflation. We've known this in the Nordics. We've had, a tougher time with it up here, and that as well as the energy cost. So this is not a good sign that the inflation was so strong. If you look at the jobless rate in the United States and the improvements there, and then with the EU inflation, you're looking very close to possibly a stagflation, and you're looking very close to a increased rate of increase on the rates. So what the ECB does, what our own Fed governor or Fed head does here, it's not really the Fed, it's called the RICS, and the RICS is our country, our region, and that's governed by the king, so to speak. But that's really only a name only. So we'll see what's happening there. We do see that the UK and the EU are talking about potentially the UK rejoining. There has to do with an issue on the trade in Northern Ireland. And I think really, right now in the UK, you have a lot of very impoverished households. They've had some very cold weather in the UK. They've had snow, and they haven't had snow in the wintertime for a long time. So now they've had some snow, and you have increased costs to the electricity, and you have a lot of children going hungry. So parents who are skipping meals, not eating for the day or maybe two, to make sure that their children have food to eat. And then so the UK government is going to be setting up food programs in the schools. But the idea is that by rejoining the UK to the EU, we could have increased business. So, and one of the cures to inflation is grow your economy, grow your trade, and you'll see drops in the inflation figures. But in the Nordics specifically, Eli Lilly came out yesterday and said that they were going to have a $35 a month for insulin. So that would be a direct impact for a company like Novo Nordisk, which is a Danish insulin manufacturer. It's not clear what how this will be, but their shares were up today. And then also, if you look at the Novo Nordisk, where the majority of their sales are, they're selling a lot, over 50% to the US. And they have this new blockbuster drug, Ozempic, which all the Hollywood and Hollywooders are taking to lose weight. It lowers your blood sugar. I don't know how it interacts with the insulin and so forth, and how they're prescribing it. And it's not prescribed as a weight loss drug, but a lot of people are using it to get very thin very quickly. So you see that happening on a regular basis. In fact, they even had shortages of it in the US. That also has to do, I think, with some of the FDA rulings. But that's the news for Denmark. And then we see that the war in the Ukraine continues. And really the question is, at this point, will Russia continue to call it a special mobilization, or will they actually go over and start calling it a war? They've had this where they called up 300,000 troops after they had said it would only last for a couple of weeks. And then, it's a very difficult story to read because of the propaganda. You have a lot of money that's been going over from the United States. It's 120 billion. From Europe, it's something like 10 billion. And most of that's in the form of munitions. And so you have questions on how many tanks is Russia losing. There's a story out where they lost 130 of their tanks, but it's hard to tell. And then there are stories that they're capturing the Leopards. But then you have the countries that would have sent the Leopards, like Poland, and then Ukraine saying they have not deployed to the regions where Russia is saying they're capturing them. The fighting is fairly intense from what we can understand in Bakhmut. The north side, you have the Russians attacking and gaining. The south side, you have the Ukrainians attacking and gaining. It's very difficult to tell what's really going on. But I certainly don't think the tanks are being utilized. I think it's more an ATV war, more drones, and more for kind of rapid fire. And again, we're not seeing any real figures, but the key figure that we are seeing is on ammunition. And so we've had a number of people within the EU and NATO talking about ammunition and production. And so now we know that we're ramping up the production to sell the ammunition. So keep an eye on your war companies. And then in terms of business here in Sweden, really, I think probably one of the biggest stories today and one of our key focus is electric cars. It's not clear how well electric cars are going to do when we don't have the electrical grid in place, nor the pricing sensitivity to make it affordable. But Polestar has come out and said that they're looking to have stronger Q4 sales and that they're going to really ramp up. But they're not going to do a price war. So opposite of what Elon Musk has been doing lately, the Polestar thinks that they'll be able to take market share, and we'll see how that develops. And I think really keep an eye on those horse races there with the electric vehicles. We'll see how it goes. And of course, when you're looking at the electric vehicles, you want to look at the Volkswagen and Northvolt and keep stories there. Skistar, one of our typically winter stocks. There's a lot of criticism about them and how they're pricing out the family. You really have it priced only for the upper class now, which is not very Swedish in a traditional sense. Traditionally, these companies should be applied or appeal to all families, and it's just really not the case. So these are the big summer week or school break weeks where we have families out on vacation in Sweden, and so we'll get figures from them, from Skistar, and that'll impact their sales. And then overall sales, sales for households, and speaking of households in Aura, which is the region where Skistar has a lot of activity, you did have a record number of houses for sale at the end of the summer last year. But in general, in the Swedish home market, we see that there is a slight uptick in sales and or pricing on the sales. And that's also occurring in Finland now. So I think overall, as a region, we might be recovering. We'll see, because we did have the finance minister come out and talk about how bad a state we were in, how bad a shape it is. And the consumer here in Sweden is really suffering from the household level. So we'll keep an eye and we'll see what happens. So really, hopefully you're subscribed and we're helping you out. So please, find all the notes on Substack and subscribe. You'll get the information, and we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you. Bye.